Hey guys, Abs here. This is a video where I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit about my process from start to finish. I start with a rough sketch where I'm sort of just laying out rough shapes in the beginning of the Pokemon in the pose that I want to draw it in. After that, I'll start refining it a little bit more. After I got a pose that I'm happy with, you can see that I do change it up a little bit. When I figure something isn't working quite right, I erase and start again. So the paper that I use is this normal large printing paper. This is an A3 size, which is about 11.5 inches by 16.5 inches. And the pencil I'm using is a mechanical pencil by the brand Pilot. Now I do ink on a separate piece of paper, which you're going to see in a little bit. I use proper artist grade quality paper for the inking and coloring stage. So I just trace it over here. This is where I put my phone light under a glass table so it can shine up so I can see the sketch underneath. And now the coloring part. I often start with a flat layer of the Pokemon's color palette. I might color over it a couple times just to get more of an even spread of the color, after which I will use my pencils to add the shadows and the highlights. A question I often get is what materials I use to ink and color my drawings. So we'll start with inking. When it comes to inking, I use either Micron or Copic pens. The Copic multiliners are fantastic. Microns I've had some great experiences with, but I haven't used them in a while. I think I do prefer the Copic ones. As for the markers I use, you can see that I've used Sharpie quite a bit in this drawing. Sharpie is incredibly underrated in my opinion. I think they have a really great color brightness and saturation. Obviously, the blending might not be as well as Copic or other more advanced brands. But for the coloring style that I do, which is usually just to have a base layer laid out first, Sharpie really does the trick. And so does Bic markers. Copic, however, are my ideal and preferred marker to use. Their quality is unrivaled in my opinion, and I like the fact that you can keep refilling them. Another marker brand that I use are Graphic Pro Duo, as well as Touch Markers and J Burrows. Now J Burrows I think is an Australian only brand sold at Officeworks. If you can get your hands on them, I would highly recommend because they're really cheap. It's about $30 for a set of 60 markers, which comes down to about 50 cents per marker, which is an incredible deal. And trust me, the quality is great. They don't blend like Copic do, but if you just want to have a solid color base, then it's really good. Like I mentioned earlier, I add shadows and highlights in with colored pencils, and my preferred brand is the Faber-Castell Polychromos. For the style of coloring that I like to use with colored pencils, these Polychromos are absolutely ideal. I like to build up layers by shading in a bit lightly and using the friction of the pencil on the paper to lay down the pigment in a nice even way. This can help to create a nice soft shadow effect. Now for the highlights, I usually use a white pencil, and that is a Prismacolor pencil. I do feel like the Faber-Castell white, it doesn't lay down on the markers as well as the Prismacolor ones do. I also often use a colored pencil around the white or maybe a little bit over it, just so that it's not too much of a harsh highlight. Of course, this color has to match the base color behind it. So this piece was actually a commission for the person on the left who wanted to be drawn about to get into a battle with his friend. These kind of pieces are a lot of fun to do, but they can be a bit tricky because you have all these Pokemon of different shapes, colors, sizes, and it can be a bit tough sometimes to try to figure out how they're going to work well together on the page, especially when you have two separate teams on one page, 12 Pokemon, and you also got to fit the trainers in front of them. But this is where thumbnailing really helps, and that's where on a separate piece of paper, before I start the process at all, I draw a real quick, tiny thumbnail, and on here I just really roughly map out each character, where I want them to be, and that way I have a quick glance visual of what the arrangement of the final piece will look like. It's much more manageable to work this way rather than trying to get everything down the first go straight away on a big piece of paper, because you're going to end up erasing and fixing things constantly. Even with the planning, even with the thumbnail, I already had to do a lot of, changing of the poses and the placement of the Pokemon and the trainers as well. So doing a thumbnail before any drawing can really help you visualize what you want that final outcome to look like, and also what sort of composition will work best. Sometimes you can try out several different thumbnails and see which one appeals the most to you. So after putting down the shadows under all the characters, essentially the drawing is finished. This is the final piece, which is now with the client who ordered it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll come out with a new video very, very soon. Take care.